Section 8 of the Laws of Ecclesiastical Polity, Book 1, by Richard Hooker. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Of the natural finding out of laws by the light of reason, to guide the will unto that which is good. Wherefore, to return to our former intent of discovering the natural way whereby rules have been found out concerning that goodness wherewith the will of man ought to be moved in human actions, as everything naturally and necessarily doth desire the utmost good and greatest perfection, whereof nature hath made it capable, even so man. Our felicity, therefore, being the object and accomplishment of our desire, we cannot choose but wish and covet it. All particular things which are subject unto action, the will doth so far forth incline unto, as reason judgeth them the better for us, and consequently the more available to our bliss. If reason err, we fall into evil, and are so far forth deprived of the general perfection we seek. Seeing, therefore, that for the framing of men's actions the knowledge of good from evil is necessary, it only resteth that we search how this may be had. Neither must we suppose that there needeth one rule to know the good, and another the evil by. For he that knoweth what is straight doth even thereby discern what is crooked, because the absence of straightness in bodies capable thereof is crookedness. Goodness in actions is like unto straightness, wherefore that which is done well we term right. For as the straight way is most acceptable to him that travelleth, because by it he cometh soonest to his journey's end, so in action that which doth lie the evenest between us and the end we desire must needs be the fittest for our use. Besides which fitness for use, there is also in rectitude beauty, as contrariwise in obliquity deformity. And that which is good in the actions of men doth not only delight as profitable, but as amiable also. In which consideration the Grecians most divinely have given to the active perfection of men a name expressing both beauty and goodness, because goodness in ordinary speech is for the most part applied only to that which is beneficial, but we, in the name of goodness, do here imply both. And of discerning goodness there are but these two ways, the one, the knowledge of the causes whereby it is made such, the other, the observation of those signs and tokens, which, being annexed always unto goodness, argue that where they are found, there also goodness is, although we know not the cause by force whereof it is there. The former of these is the most sure and infallible way, but so hard that all shun it, and had rather walk as men do in the dark by haphazard, than tread so long and intricate mazes for knowledge's sake. As therefore physicians are many times forced to leave such methods of curing as themselves know to be fittest, and being overruled by their patients' impatience, are fain to try the best they can in taking that way of cure which the cured will yield unto. In like sort, considering how the case doth stand with this present age full of tongue and weak of brain, behold, we yield to the stream thereof. Into the causes of goodness we will not make any curious or deep inquiry. To touch them now and then it shall be sufficient, when they are so near at hand that easily they may be conceived without any far-removed discourse. That way we are contented to prove, which, being the worse in itself, is notwithstanding now, by reason of common imbecility, the fitter and likelier to be brooked. Signs and tokens to know good by are of sundry kinds, some more certain and some less. The most certain token of evident goodness is, if the general persuasion of all men do so account it. And therefore a common received error is never utterly overthrown till such times as we go from signs unto causes, and show some manifest root or fountain thereof common unto all, whereby it may clearly appear how it hath come to pass that so many have been overseen. In which case surmises and slight probabilities will not serve, because the universal consent of men is the perfectest and strongest in this kind, which comprehendeth only the signs and tokens of goodness. Things casual do vary, and that which a man doth but chance to think well of cannot still have the like hap. Wherefore, although we know not the cause, yet thus much we may know, that some necessary cause there is, whensoever the judgments of all men generally, or for the most part, run one and the same way, especially in matters of natural discourse. For of things necessarily and naturally done, there is no more affirmed but this, quote, they keep either always, or for the most part, one tenure. End quote. The general and perpetual voice of men is as the sentence of God himself, for that which all men have at all times learned, nature herself must needs have taught, and God, being the author of nature, her voice is but his instrument. By her, from him, we receive whatsoever in such sort we learn. Infinite duties there are, the goodness whereof is by this rule sufficiently manifested, although we had no other warrant besides to approve them. The Apostle St. Paul, having speech concerning the heathen, saith of them, they are a law unto themselves. His meaning is, that by force of the light of reason, wherewith God illuminateth every one which cometh into the world, men, being enabled to know truth from falsehood and good from evil, do thereby learn in many things what the will of God is, which will himself not revealing by any extraordinary means unto them, but they, by natural discourse, attaining the knowledge thereof, seem the makers of those laws which indeed are his, and they but only the finders of them out. A law, therefore, generally taken, is a directive rule unto goodness of operation. The rule of divine operations outward is the definitive appointment of God's own wisdom set down within himself. The rule of natural agents that work by simple necessity is the determination of the wisdom of God, known to God himself, the principal director of them, but not unto them that are directed to execute the same. The rule of natural agents, which work after a sort of their own accord as the beasts do, is the judgment of common sense or fancy concerning the sensible goodness of those objects wherewith they are moved. The rule of ghostly or immaterial natures, as spirits and angels, is their intuitive intellectual judgment concerning the amiable beauty and high goodness of that object which, with unspeakable joy and delight, doth set them on work. The rule of voluntary agents on earth is the sentence which reason giveth concerning the goodness of those things which they are to do. And the sentences which reason giveth are some more, some less general, before it come to define in particular actions what is good. The main principles of reason are in themselves apparent, for to make nothing evident of itself unto man's understanding were to take away all possibility of knowing anything. And herein that of Theophrastus is true, quote, they that seek a reason of all things do utterly overthrow reason. End quote. In every kind of knowledge some such grounds there are, as that being proposed, the mind doth presently embrace them as free from all possibility of error, clear and manifest without proof, in which kind axioms or principles more general are such as this, that the greater good is to be chosen before the less. If therefore it should be demanded what reason there is why the will of man, which doth necessarily shun harm, and covet whatsoever is pleasant and sweet, should be commanded to count the pleasures of sin gall, and notwithstanding the bitter accidents wherewith virtuous actions are compassed, yet still to rejoice and delight in them, surely this could never stand with reason, but that wisdom, thus proscribing, groundeth her laws upon an infallible rule of comparison, which is, that small difficulties, when exceeding great good is sure to ensue, and on the other side momentary benefits, when the hurt which they draw after them is unspeakable, are not at all to be respected. This rule is the ground whereupon the wisdom of the Apostle buildeth a law enjoining patience unto himself. The present lightness of our affliction worketh unto us, even with abundance upon abundance, an eternal weight of glory, while we look not on the things which are seen, but on the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. Therefore Christianity is to be embraced, whatsoever calamities in those times it was accompanied withal. On the same grounds our Saviour proveth the law most reasonable, that forbids those crimes which men for gain's sake fall into. For a man to win the world, if it be with the loss of his soul, what benefit or good is it? Axioms less general, yet so manifest that they need no further proof, are such as these: God to be worshipped, parents to be honoured, others to be used by us as we ourselves would be by them. Such things, as soon as they are alleged, all men acknowledge to be good. They require no proof or further discourse to be assured of their goodness. Notwithstanding, whatsoever such principle there is, it was at the first found out by discourse and drawn from the very bowels of heaven and earth. For we are to note that things in the world are to us discernible, not only so far forth as serveth for our vital preservation, but further also in a twofold higher respect. For first, if all other uses were utterly taken away, yet the mind of man, being by nature speculative and delighted with contemplation in itself, they were to be known even for mere knowledge and understanding's sake. Yea, further besides this, the knowledge of every the least thing in the world hath in it a second peculiar benefit unto us, inasmuch as it serveth to minister rules, canons, and laws, for men to direct those actions by, which we properly term human. This did the very heathens themselves obscurely insinuate, by making Themis, which we call jus, or right, to be the daughter of heaven and earth. We know things either as they are in themselves or as they are in mutual relation one to another. The knowledge of that which man is in reference unto himself, and other things in relation unto man, I may justly term the mother of all those principles, which are, as it were, edicts, statutes, and decrees in that law of nature whereby human actions are framed. First, therefore, having observed that the best things, where they are not hindered, do still produce the best operations, for which cause, where many things are to concur into one effect, the best is in all congruity of reason to guide the residue, that it prevailing most, the work principally done by it may have the greatest perfection. When hereupon we come to observe in ourselves of what excellency our souls are in comparison of our bodies, and the diviner part in revelation unto the baser of our souls, seeing that all these concur in producing human actions, it cannot be well unless the chiefest do command and direct the rest. The soul then ought to conduct the body, and the spirit of our minds the soul. This is therefore the first law whereby the highest power of the mind requireth general obedience at the hands of all the rest concurring with it unto action. Touching the several grand mandates, which, being imposed by the understanding faculty of the mind, must be obeyed by the will of man, they are by the same method found out, whether they import our duty towards God or towards man. Touching the one, I may not here stand to open by what degrees of discourse the minds, even of mere natural men, have attained to know, not only that there is a God, but also what power, force, wisdom, and other properties that God hath, and how all things depend on him. This being therefore presupposed from that known relation which God hath unto us as unto children, and unto all good things as unto effects, whereof himself is the principal cause, these axioms and laws naturally concerning our duty have arisen, that in all things we go about, his aid is by prayer to be craved, that he cannot have sufficient honour done unto him, but the uttermost of that we can do to honour him we must, which is in the same effect that we read, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, which law our Saviour doth term the first and the great commandment. Touching the next, which, as our Saviour addeth, is like unto this, he meaneth in amplitude and largeness, inasmuch as it is the root out of which all laws of duty to menward have grown, as out of the former all offices of religion towards God. The like natural inducement hath brought men to know that it is their duty no less to love others than themselves. For seeing those things which are equal must needs all have one measure. If I cannot but wish to receive all good, even as much at every man's hand as any man can wish unto his own soul, how should I look to have any part of my desire herein satisfied, unless myself be careful to satisfy the like desire which is undoubtedly in other men, we all being of one and the same nature? To have anything offered them repugnant to this desire must needs in all respect grieve them as much as me, so that if I do harm I must look to suffer, there being no reason that others should show greater measure of love to me than they have by me showed unto them. My desire therefore to be loved of my equals in nature as much as possible may be, imposeth upon me a natural duty of bearing to themward fully the like affection, from which relation of equality between ourselves and them that are as ourselves, what several rules and canons natural reason hath drawn for direction of life, no man is ignorant, as namely, that because we would take no harm, we must therefore do none, that since we would not be in anything extremely dealt with, we must ourselves avoid all extremity in our dealings, that from all violence and wrong we are utterly to abstain, with such like, which further to wade in would be tedious, and to our present purpose not altogether so necessary, seeing that on these two general heads already mentioned all other specialties are dependent. Wherefore the natural measure whereby to judge our doings is the sentence of reason determining and setting down what is good to be done, which sentence is either mandatory, showing what must be done, or else permissive, declaring only what may be done, or thirdly, admonitory, opening what is the most convenient for us to do. The first taketh place when the comparison doth stand altogether between doing and not doing of one thing, which in itself is absolutely good or evil, as it had been for Joseph to yield or not to yield to the impotent desire of his lewd mistress, the one evil, the other good simply. The second is, when of diverse things evil, all being not evitable, we are permitted to take one, which one, saving only in case of so great urgency, were not otherwise to be taken, as in the matter of divorce amongst the Jews. The last, when of diverse things good, one is principal and most eminent, as in their act who sold their possessions and laid the price at the apostles' feet, which possessions they might have retained unto themselves without sin. Again, in the Apostle St. Paul's own choice, to maintain himself by his own labour, whereas in living by the Church's maintenance as others did, there had been no offence committed. In goodness, therefore, there is a latitude or extent whereby it cometh to pass that even of good actions some are better than other some. Whereas otherwise one man could not excel another, but all should be either absolutely good, as hitting jump that indivisible point or centre wherein goodness consisteth, or else missing it, they should be excluded out of the number of well-doers. Degrees of well-doing there could be none, except perhaps in the seldomness and offenness of doing well. But the nature of goodness being thus ample, a law is properly that which reason in such sort defineth to be good, that it must be done. And the law of reason or human nature is that which men by discourse of natural reason have rightly found out themselves to be all forever bound unto in their actions. Laws of reason have these marks to be known by. Such as keep them resemble most lively in their voluntary actions that very manner of working which nature herself doth necessarily observe in the course of the whole world. The works of nature are all behoveful, beautiful, without superfluity or defect, even so theirs, if they be framed according to that which the law of reason teacheth. Secondly, those laws are investigable by reason without the help of revelation, supernatural and divine. Finally, in such sort they are investigable, that the knowledge of them is general, and the world hath always been acquainted with them, according to that which one in Sophocles observeth concerning a branch of this law, quote, "It is no child of today's or yesterday's birth, but hath been no man knoweth how long since." End quote. It is not agreed upon by one or two or few, but by all, which we may not so understand as if every particular man in the whole world did know and confess whatsoever the law of reason doth contain. But this law is such that, being proposed, no man can reject it as unreasonable and unjust. Again, there is nothing in it, but any man, having natural perfection of wit and ripeness of judgment, may by labour and travail find out. And to conclude, the general principles thereof are such as it is not easy to find men ignorant of them. Law rational, therefore, which men commonly used to call the law of nature, meaning thereby the law which human nature knoweth itself in reason universally bound unto, which also for that cause may be termed most fitly the law of reason. This law, I say, comprehendeth all those things which men by the light of their natural understanding evidently know, or at leastwise may know, to be beseeming or unbeseeming, virtuous or vicious, good or evil, for them to do. Now, although it be true, which some have said, that whatsoever is done amiss, the law of nature and reason thereby is transgressed, because even those offences which are by their special qualities breaches of supernatural laws, do also, for that they are generally evil, violate in general that principle of reason which willeth universally to fly from evil, yet do we not therefore so far extend the law of reason as to contain in it all manner of laws, whereunto reasonable creatures are bound, but, as hath been shown, we restrain it to those only duties which all men by force of natural wit either do, or might understand to be such duties as concern all men. Quote, "Certain half-waking men there are, as St. Augustine noteth, who neither altogether asleep in folly, nor yet thoroughly awake in the light of true understanding, have thought that there is not at all anything just and righteous in itself, but look wherewith nations are inured, the same they take to be right and just. Whereupon their conclusion is, that seeing each sort of people hath a different kind of right from other, and that which is right of its own nature must be everywhere one and the same, therefore in itself there is nothing right. These good folks, saith he, that I may not trouble their wits with the rehearsal of too many things, have not looked so far into the world as to perceive that do as thou wouldst be done unto is a sentence which all nations under heaven are agreed upon. Refer this sentence to the love of God, and it extinguisheth all heinous crimes. Refer it to the love of thy neighbour, and all grievous wrongs it banisheth out of the world." End quote. Wherefore, as touching the law of reason, this was, it seemeth, St. Augustine's judgment, namely that there are in it some things which stand as principles universally agreed upon, and that out of those principles, which are in themselves evident, the greatest moral duties we owe towards God and man may without any great difficulty be concluded. If then it be here demanded by what means it should come to pass, the greatest part of the law moral being so easy for all men to know, that so many thousands of men, notwithstanding, have been ignorant even of principal moral duties, not imagining the breach of them to be sin, I deny not, but lewd and wicked custom, beginning perhaps at the first among few, afterwards spreading into greater multitudes, and so continuing from time to time, may be a force even in plain things, to smother the light of natural understanding, because men will not bend their wits to examine whether things wherewith they have been accustomed be good or evil. For example's sake, that grosser kind of heathenish idolatry, whereby they worship the very works of their own hands, was an absurdity to reason so palpable, that the prophet David, comparing idols and idolaters together, maketh almost no odds between them, but the one in a manner as much without wit and sense as the other. They that make them are like unto them, and so are all that trust in them. That wherein an idolater doth seem so absurd and foolish is by the wise man thus expressed: He is not ashamed to speak unto that which hath no life. He calleth on him that is weak for health. He prayeth for life unto him which is dead. Of him which hath no experience he requireth help. For his journey he sueth to him which is not able to go. For gain and work and success in his affairs he seeketh furtherance of him that hath no manner of power. The cause of which senseless stupidity is afterwards imputed to custom. When a father mourneth grievously for his son that was taken away suddenly, he made an image for him that was once dead, whom now he worshippeth as a god, ordaining to his servants ceremonies and sacrifices. Thus, by process of time, this wicked custom prevailed and was kept as a law. The authority of rulers, the ambition of craftsmen, and such like means, thrusting forward the ignorant and increasing their superstition. Unto this which the wise man hath spoken, somewhat besides may be added. For whatsoever we have hitherto taught or shall hereafter, concerning the force of man's natural understanding, this we always desire withal to be understood, that there is no kind of faculty or power in man, or any other creature, which can rightly perform the functions allotted to it, without perpetual aid and concurrence of that supreme cause of all things, the benefit whereof, as oft as we cause God in his justice to withdraw, there can no other thing follow than that which the Apostle noteth, even men endued with the light of reason, to walk notwithstanding in the vanity of their mind, having their cogitations darkened, and being strangers from the life of God, through the ignorance which is in them because of the hardness of their hearts. And this cause is mentioned by the prophet Isaiah, speaking of the ignorance of idolaters, who see not how the manifest law of reason condemneth their gross iniquity and sin. They have not in them, saith he, so much wit as to think, Shall I bow to the stock of a tree? All knowledge and understanding is taken from them, for God hath shut their eyes, that they cannot see. That which we say in this case of idolatry serveth for all other things, wherein the like kind of general blindness hath prevailed against the manifest laws of reason. Within the compass of which laws we do not only comprehend whatsoever may be easily known to belong to the duty of all men, but even whatsoever may possibly be known to be of that quality, so that the same be by necessary consequence deduced out of clear and manifest principles. For if once we descend unto probable collections what is convenient for men, we are then in the territory where free and arbitrary determinations, the territory where human laws take place, which laws are after to be considered. End of section 8.